The world's most notorious prisons are known for extreme conditions, overcrowding, lack of basic amenities, and severe abuse. Facilities like ADX Florence in the United States, Black Beach in Equatorial Guinea, and Butyrka in Russia are infamous for isolating and brutalizing inmates, many of whom suffer long-term psychological and physical effects due to the intense treatment. These prisons often lack adequate health care, have poor sanitation, and enforce harsh security measures, creating environments that are exceptionally hard to survive. Each of these institutions has gained notoriety not only for their treatment of criminals, but also for their impact on human rights.
Just-released footage of El Chapo shows the drug lord looking teary-eyed and in shock after he was flown to New York. He now faces a life sentence at Supermax Prison in Colorado, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Its infamous inmates include the Boston Marathon bomber, the Unabomber, and the shoe bomber who tried to bring down a plane. Cells are small at Supermax. The furniture is made of stone, not metal.
Lingering in the shadows of Colorado's Rocky Mountains lies the country's only federal Supermax prison. ADX Florence is closed off to the rest of the world. The Supermax incarcerates criminals deemed too dangerous for the average prison, like the notorious drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who was transferred in July after escaping 2 prisons in Mexico. Boston Marathon bomber Johar Tsarnaev, Unabomber Ted Kaczynski, and Oklahoma City bomber Terry Nichols are also incarcerated here. Of the 400 inmates, 1 was considered the most dangerous: Terrible Tommy Silverstein. He 3 inmates and a prison guard in jail before being transferred to the Supermax. Tommy spent more than 3 decades in solitary confinement before this year.
You've heard about the prison for terror suspects at Guantanamo Bay, but you probably don't know there's another prison, a secretive installation in Colorado, where more than 40 terrorists are locked away. The government won't say much about this place it calls ADX, short for United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum. The public has never seen the operation inside, but you will tonight. The so-called Supermax prison is sort of a 21st century Alcatraz.
ADX Florence in Colorado, often called the Alcatraz of the Rockies, is widely regarded as one of the world's harshest prisons due to extreme isolation, tight security, and the psychological toll on inmates. Designed for America's most dangerous offenders, this Supermax facility keeps prisoners in solitary confinement for approximately 23 hours a day in small concrete cells with limited light. The minimal human contact and restricted movement contribute to severe mental health issues, with many inmates experiencing paranoia, depression, and hallucinations. The prison's security measures are intense, with constant surveillance and minimized interactions. Even during their hour outside, inmates are confined to small, enclosed areas, often unable to speak with others. Human rights organizations like Amnesty International have raised concerns, arguing that the conditions amount to cruel punishment, especially for inmates with pre-existing mental health issues who often lack adequate care. Housing high-profile inmates like the Unabomber and World Trade Center bombers, ADX Florence enforces stringent communication restrictions, effectively isolating inmates from the outside world. The prison's design prioritizes security, but at a significant cost to mental health, sparking ongoing debates about whether such extreme confinement is ethical or necessary. Bang Kwang.
Let's put it this way, a lot of the people in here will never see free air again.
The Thai people call Bang Kwang the Big Tiger. They say it eats men alive.
I have no clue when I will die. They could inject me today or tomorrow.
In the West, it is being known as the Bangkok Hilton.
But there's 24 in the room, which is really hard, especially just to get to the toilet because everyone's all over the floor.
Bang Kwang Prison is at boiling point. In the last few years, the prison's population has trebled because of a government crackdown on drug trafficking. 7,000 men are now packed into a prison built to hold around half that number.
You'd have to be very desperate or very stupid to do drugs in Thailand. After all, the warnings couldn't be any clearer, the penalties any tougher. But still Australians keep getting caught. Still, they're shocked when they find themselves in some of the world's most appalling, most brutal jails, like the notorious Bangkok Hilton. In a way, though, they're the lucky ones. Thailand's a place where when they say zero tolerance, they mean it, where more than 2,000 drug traffickers were killed on the streets last year. Step behind the bars of the infamous Bangkok Hilton, and it's the number of women that's overwhelming, the number who've taken the gamble. Nearly 6,000 in this one small jail. Most have thrown their lives away for drugs. With the average sentence 25 years or more, many will die in this place.
Bang Kwang Central Prison, known as the Bangkok Hilton, is one of the harshest prisons globally due to its overcrowding, poor conditions, and strict treatment of inmates. Housing some of Thailand's most dangerous offenders, including death row inmates, the prison often holds up to 20 people per cell, leading to unsanitary conditions and health issues. Food provisions are minimal, consisting largely of basic meals that leave many inmates undernourished, especially those who can't afford to buy extra food from the commissary. Medical resources are sparse, and inmates frequently suffer from untreated health issues. Security at Bang Kwang is strict, with new prisoners shackled in leg irons for months and inmates permanently restrained, adding to both physical discomfort and mental strain. Limited social contact and isolation can lead to psychological issues, particularly for death row inmates who live in constant uncertainty. Foreign inmates face additional challenges, including language barriers, separation from family, and limited support, making life at Bang Kwang even more challenging. These factors have earned Bang Kwang a reputation as one of the toughest prisons worldwide, sparking ongoing human rights concerns. Black Beach Prison in Equatorial Guinea is known as one of the world's worst prisons due to its brutal conditions, overcrowding, and severe mistreatment of inmates. Located on Bioko Island, it holds political prisoners and common criminals alike, who endure cramped cells, unsanitary facilities, and limited access to basic needs like clean water and food. Torture and physical abuse are reportedly common, with guards inflicting violence on prisoners without provocation, particularly targeting political detainees with both physical and psychological abuse. Medical care is scarce, leading to untreated illnesses and worsening health due to poor sanitation and lack of resources. Corruption within the prison compounds the suffering, as guards often demand bribes for essentials like food or medicine, which many inmates cannot afford. Isolation from family members and denial of visitation rights further amplify the psychological strain on prisoners. Despite international condemnation from organizations like Amnesty International, Black Beach remains a symbol of severe human rights abuses and neglect, with conditions that make survival difficult and reform unlikely.
Black Dolphin Prison houses some of the country's toughest, most violent criminals. This facility, first mentioned in history books way back in the 18th century, today it holds hundreds of inmates and it's known for its brutal rules. Artis Murad Gazdiev was given exclusive access to this site.
In this provincial town at the edge of Siberia is a prison, but it's no ordinary prison. This facility has spawned legends, myths, scandals and investigations. The mere sight of this statue has broken the most soulless butchers.
The Black Dolphin, Russia's highest security prison. It is here that some of the country's worst maniacs, serious and even cannibals are held.
And in Russia, officially penal colony number 6 is considered, creating significant psychological stress. The prison's conditions are intentionally minimalistic. Inmates live in cold, bare cells with base temperatures with few personal belongings. Black Dolphin's relentless routine and lack of rehabilitative programs emphasize punishment over reform, making it a symbol of strict discipline and control, where inmates experience severe physical and mental strain daily. Butyrka Prison in Moscow, Russia, known as one of the world's worst prisons, is infamous for its overcrowded conditions, harsh treatment, and poor health facilities. Originally built in the 19th century, Butyrka was designed to hold far fewer inmates than it currently accommodates, leading to severe overcrowding. Prisoners often share small cells with little space to move, leading to unsanitary conditions, and the rapid spread of diseases such as tuberculosis, which has become a major issue due to inadequate medical care. Treatment at Butyrka is notoriously harsh, with reports of physical and psychological abuse by guards and prison officials. Prisoners endure long hours of confinement and strict control measures, often with minimal opportunities for exercise or rehabilitation. The lack of natural light and poor ventilation in the cells add to the oppressive atmosphere, contributing to health issues and psychological strain. Human rights groups have consistently criticized Butyrka for violating basic standards of prisoner welfare. Amnesty International and other organizations have highlighted issues such as lack of access to legal representation, limited family contact, and inadequate support for those with mental health issues. For many, Butyrka represents the severe conditions and rigid control associated with Russian detention facilities, where punishment often overshadows rehabilitation, making it one of the most feared prisons globally. Camp 14 in North Korea is considered one of the world's worst prisons due to its brutal conditions, forced labor, and harsh treatment of inmates. This prison camp, located in a remote area, holds political prisoners, often including entire families punished for one member's alleged disloyalty to the regime. Inmates are forced into grueling labor for long hours under extreme conditions, with minimal food, leading to widespread malnutrition. The camp lacks adequate medical care, resulting in severe health issues among prisoners. Conditions are further worsened by frequent physical abuse, including torture, as punishment for minor infractions or attempted escapes. Detainees are subjected to constant surveillance, isolation, and harsh discipline, often for life, with little to no hope of release. Reports from escapees and human rights organizations have highlighted the psychological and physical torment prisoners endure, making Camp 14 notorious for its inhuman treatment and total lack of basic rights. Ciudad Barrios Prison in El Salvador is notorious for its extreme overcrowding, harsh conditions, and gang violence. Originally built for around 800 inmates, it houses thousands, most of whom are members of the MS-13 gang. Cells are packed, often holding more prisoners than they were designed for, creating unsanitary and unsafe conditions. Inmates experience limited access to basic amenities, including food, water, and healthcare, which exacerbates health issues and leads to frequent outbreaks of disease. The prison is largely controlled by the gangs themselves, as guards and staff rarely intervene in daily activities, allowing gangs to enforce their own rules and punishments within the prison. Violence among rival groups is common, and many inmates live in constant fear. Ciudad Barrios reflects the deep-rooted gang problems in El Salvador, and its harsh, lawless environment makes it one of the most feared prisons worldwide. Diyarbakir Prison in Turkey is regarded as one of the world's harshest prisons due to its history of extreme overcrowding, severe abuse, and brutal treatment of political prisoners, especially during the 1980s. Known for housing a large number of Kurdish political detainees, the prison was infamous for physical and psychological torture, including beatings, forced confessions, and solitary confinement. Conditions in the prison were so severe that hunger strikes and riots were common among inmates, who often risked their lives to protest the abuse. Overcrowding remains a persistent issue, leading to unsanitary living conditions and poor access to medical care. Despite some reforms, Diyarbakir's history of repression and harsh discipline has left a legacy that continues to be criticized by human rights organizations worldwide, marking it as a symbol of repression in Turkey.
Hundreds of people have gathered in the Georgian town of Tbilisi for a spontaneous protest over claims of abuse in prisons. Locals united in the streets after watching late news bulletins on Wednesday, which aired video apparently showing the torture and prisoners. Two broadcasters...
Gldani Prison in Georgia is infamous for its brutal conditions and history of human rights abuses. Overcrowding, inadequate medical care, and unsanitary conditions have made life extremely harsh for inmates. In 2012, shocking footage emerged showing systematic abuse, including torture and sexual assault by guards, which sparked outrage and protests across the country. Despite reforms promised by the government following these revelations, issues with poor treatment, inadequate facilities, and corruption have persisted, leaving a legacy of fear associated with Gldani. The prison remains a symbol of the severe challenges within Georgia's penal system, widely condemned by human rights organizations.
Now, the Kamiti Maximum Prison was turned into a battlefield following an attempted prison break by inmates. The mayhem was reportedly triggered by the prisoners' refusal to submit to a routine inspection for contraband. The KTN's Ashamulu reports the facility is now under total lockdown.
Mid-morning scenes outside the Kamiti Maximum Prison. Trouble inside the country's biggest correctional facility. A reinforcement of prison warders were ready for battle, and in no time at all, the facility was under lockdown.
Kamiti Maximum Security Prison in Kenya is considered one of the world's worst prisons due to severe overcrowding, poor sanitation, and reports of abuse. Built during the colonial era, the prison holds far more inmates than it was designed for, leading to cramped conditions where prisoners often sleep on floors in unsanitary, poorly ventilated cells. Inmates face limited access to basic necessities, including clean water, adequate food, and medical care, resulting in frequent disease outbreaks and malnutrition. Kamiti has a history of alleged abuse and mistreatment, with reports of physical violence and corruption by prison staff. Attempts at reform have been slow, and conditions remain challenging, making Kamiti a symbol of Kenya's struggling prison system and a source of concern for human rights organizations. While intended as high-security facilities for society's most dangerous offenders, these prisons have become symbols of human rights abuses and extreme punishment. From overcrowding and inadequate medical care to psychological isolation and reported torture, these institutions reveal global issues within the justice and correctional systems. Many organizations advocate for prison reform, emphasizing that such extreme conditions cross the line from justice to inhumanity.